Okay, so as usual, let's start with a quick prayer. Just closing our eyes, uniting our thoughts, our hearts, asking the benefactors to protect us, to inspire us in this study. We welcome those in spirit who join us for the study of today, asking that we may all be inspired to receive the lessons with our mind and our heart open, so to benefit from it. So, with the permission of the benefactors, we start our study of today. So be it. Okay, let me share my screen. Can you all see it? Yep. Good. Wonderful. So today we're starting chapter 24. So chapter 24 deals with a very important topic, which is the identity of spirits. As we'll see, it's hard to get to know people in general when we meet them, when we start to live with them. So can you imagine how hard it is to identify a spirit who most of us don't see, who we get in contact with only during the mediumship work? Perhaps some of us will experience this contact with them on our daily life, but most of us will have just brief moments of contact. So, the identity of spirits. Possible proofs of identity, distinguishing between good and evil spirits. Questions concerning the nature and identity of spirits. Possible proofs of identity. I highlighted the word possible because we're never sure, 100% sure. And that's what Kardec says here. So 255. The issue of spirit's identity is one of the most controversial, even among the followers of Spiritism, because spirits obviously do not bring any documentation with them. And we know that some of them very readily use borrowed names. First, they don't come with an ID, They have no passport, nothing, to just introduce themselves when they do. But we need the means to identify not so much their names, since we've had so many incarnations, we may introduce ourselves with using any of previous names. Some will mean something to us, but for most of the spirits, their identity will not mean anything to us. So that's why sometimes some spirits, they borrow names, meaning something. But we will see that it's not always a case of being deceived. Because, names, they carry a kind of identity. If I say Francis of Assisi, those who know Francis of Assisi, they have an idea of that person who basically discarded his fortune to become a humble, a simple person, providing all the necessary attention to people and to animals as well. So this is an identity that has been created for Francis of Assisi. And we will see that sometimes spirits may use this to more or less tell their affinity. Not that they want to disguise themselves behind this identity, but because they want to tell us the level, the kind of spirit we are talking to. So they become like icons, not so much like personalities, but we will see that. Hence, after obsession, this is one of the greatest difficulties of practical spiritism. Practical spiritism is the work of mediumship. In many cases, however, the matter of unmistakable identity is secondary and is of no real significance. We will see that more clearly further down. But basically what I am trying to say is that it's not the identity per se that counts, but what the spirit is bringing to us, sometimes behind a certain identity. I just gave an example of Francis of Assisi. Sometimes they may not introduce themselves, but they may leave the impression that we are talking to Francis of Assisi. But it is the content of the message that will tell us all about the identity of the spirits. And not so much because, oh, is he, it's him or is not, but because what he or she is saying. This is what counts. It doesn't matter if I get to you and use any name, perhaps a name that will mean something to you, to give you good advice. It doesn't matter if it was really so-and-so or someone who came and used that identity to dress what he or she had to say and show us what level of message, of spirit we were talking to. But sometimes we also have evil spirits who want to convey messages that are not true, that are not of a higher level, disguised under special names. And that's why they say that the identity per se is secondary. We will see that the content is more important. We know of so many cases, for instance, in Catholic community. We see that it happened in the past in Portugal, in Italy, in Spain, where people saw Mary, Mother of Jesus. Why did they see Mary, Mother of Jesus? It was really her. It was her bringing a message to that community. Or in their faith, they saw that spirit as someone, in terms of level, compatible to Mary, Mother of Jesus. So it doesn't matter so much if I'm talking to her or to someone who is at her level or close to her level, or a messenger who comes to us in her name to give us counseling, to encourage us to have faith, to overcome the difficulties that sometimes are about to come. So we'll see that there are different aspects here, and that the identity per se is not the most important one. Also, we see who we want to see. If a spirit comes and says, oh, I am here because I want to work with you, I'm Jesus Christ, and I find you a wonderful medium. You can be the instrument of my, messages and so on. Well, that person, the pride, that person, we make perhaps that medium blind to anything else. You won't take criticism. You won't take, any piece of advice regarding the care that we should take, because his pride is, at stake. And because of that person or that medium will, see that it is Jesus and full stop. He's giving a communication through me. No one, I wouldn't accept that, it's a lower order spirit. It has to be, a pure spirit, and I am the medium who is the instrument for that. So we see that it's important to look at from the medium side, and also the content of the message that is given to us through that message, through that spirit. And we also see that some spirits, they bring their message and they don't want to identify themselves because it doesn't mean much. It is most difficult to prove the identity of ancient personages, and it often becomes even impossible, rendering only the possibility of making a purely moral appraisal. Again, the spirit comes and he says, "Oh, I'm, Mark, one of the apostles, and I came here today well, he lived 2,000 years ago. How can we prove his identity? He's so far away from us that the way he talks and, his behavior won't mean much to us. He may he may correspond to, those days. He may not. We don't know. We have very few elements to make the comparison. Or someone who says, "Oh, I'm from the Middle Ages. I'm from, these or that time." So it's difficult for us to prove the identity of those when they use names that lived here on Earth many centuries ago, perhaps even many years ago. And it's important here, it says purely moral appraisal. So it highlights the moral appraisal that is the most important one. We judge spirits as we judge individuals by their language. For example, if a spirit presents itself using the name Fenelon, I brought a quick biography of Fenelon for those who don't know him. His name is François de Salignac de la Motte Fenelon. He was born in France in 1651, and he died on 7th of January 1715. He was a French Catholic theologian, poet, and writer, whose liberal ideas about politics and education clashed with the status quo of the church and states at that time. He belonged to the French Academy of Letters. So he was someone connected to religion, and was also someone who was a member of the French Academy. And we see many messages of Fenelon in the Gospel according to Spiritism, but states only trivialities and pluralities. It is obviously not Fenelon. So by the content, by sometimes even the behavior of the spirit, we may identify the moral level of that spirit, and then we may check the compatibility of the moral standards of the medium, of the knowledge of the spirits, of the knowledge of the spirit, to see if it can be or cannot be that person he says or she says he is, she is. However, if what it says is worthy of Fenelon's character, and which he himself would not repudiate, we at least have some material and moral proof of the great possibility that it is indeed Fenelon. You see how careful Kardec is. He's always leaving room for doubt, possibility, some material and moral proof, not the final proof. No, it's always a possibility. It's always an indication, but it's actually a way to warn us that we can never be 100% sure. So what shall we do then? if we're not 100% sure. Discard everything, accept everything. No, he's telling us that it is a difficult, a hard job, but it can be done, especially when we look at the content of the message, the moral standard of that message, of that communication. This is the important aspect. For instance, imagine that Guilherme is well known everywhere, and we are from his team. We think alike, we have studied the same subjects, and we know about a certain topic within Spiritism as much as him because we've spent a long time together. If we come to a community where we are unknown, but Guilherme is well known, and we say, oh, this message is from Guilherme, but it is a message that I'm giving to them. Will it make great difference if it is or if it's not? It's not the name that will change the content. It is the content that may be accepted as belonging to that name, that character, or not. But if it doesn't mean anything to you, I'm Munir. Well, I don't know Munir, but let me hear what he has to say. Oh, wow, nice message. It could very well be from so-and-so, or this other person that we know. So that's why sometimes spirits, evolved ones, they take up names, not because they want to hide behind the names or give any importance personally to them or to boost the pride of people. No, because that person means something to that community. If it is a Catholic community, it is, a saint, for instance, or they think it is a saint. Sometimes the spirits, they don't say anything. They just appear in front of them. They look, oh, it resembles so-and-so. It is so-and-so. If it is, in Asia, for instance, it may be someone important to them in their religion, Buddhism, or Islam, or wherever. So they will see the image of someone who means something. They can use as a reference of the standard of the message. If it is a good spirit, yes, the message is very, it is at the very level of that spirit they think it comes from. But if it is not a good spirit, you may use that to deceive us. That's why the moral content is important, because we can't expect, no one can tell if that spirit is not that evolved, it can't give us a message at that level, at that standard. We don't have the elements. I'm not a poet. I have no trace of a poet. I cannot write a wonderful poem at the level of people, from the academy. No, I can't. I have no elements to produce that. Unless I already bring in my background the elements that I can, use to produce something good. It's the same with spirits. We can't, when we analyze the content of their communication, we can't in principle, we can't be fooled just by beautiful words, but we should analyze the content of that, how these words are articulated in order to produce a message that can be elevated or can disguise misconceptions, certain ideas that are not true. So I don't know if it's clear, but it is in this, looking at these elements that we understand the standard of the spirit. I would say that the standard of the spirit, identifying the standard of that spirit, is more important than the name, the identity of that spirit. Also, a spirit who lived many centuries ago has evolved. It's not the same spirit anymore. It may be different from the time. So the name may not mean anything today. So it was so long ago. And we know that we all evolve. And there's one very interesting aspect. So few people are well known, and we've had so many incarnations. I don't know if in one of my previous incarnations, I was someone famous. No. So if I come, when I return to spirit, I come to a meeting and I want to identify myself. I'm Munir. Who? We don't know anyone. Oh, I'm so and so. Doesn't mean anything. But my message may be good. And, the group may take advantage of this message, make good use of this message or not, depending on the content. And that's what, should be, I think, the first aspect to be looked at, the content of the message. If it's good, wonderful. If it's not, leave it aside. Let's leave it aside. And that's why mediums should be careful when they receive message and so on. They should be careful not to start, taking that as, truth, because it's important that other people within the group also analyze that content. Some people may identify things that we are not identifying and say, well, if it's so and so, it's weird because that person thought along that line, and this message here is going the opposite, So, okay, so it's the importance we attach to the message, and not that, oh, it's a terrible scene. I was, the medium who received the communication from a spirit who was trying to disguise himself or herself, and no, it's not, it happens. But our duty is actually to be extra careful with the content, the communications that we receive or we are exposed to. Undoubtedly, some will object that if a spirit were to take an assumed name, assumed name, even for good purposes, it would nevertheless be committing fraud, and therefore would not be a good spirit. At this point, delicate issues arise, which are difficult to comprehend, but which we shall attempt to address. Is the fact that sometimes some people, to introduce themselves to the community, they need to give a name as a reference to the standard of the message he or she wants to bring. Hi, Liz.
Hi, everyone. I have a question about the language that is used by spirits, because sometimes they can give, a heartfelt message, but I notice that the grammar and the standard of the writing or communication doesn't equate to the standard of the context. What do you think about that? Because I would have thought if it was a fairly evolved spirit, the grammar, they would automatically know.
Yes, Liz. I think this is a secondary aspect, in my opinion, because there may be a problem of, conveying the message and not the content of the message per se. Sometimes there's a problem with the medium as well. Some problem, sometimes it is a problem, as I said, within the communication. It starts very clear. When it gets at the other end, it's noisy, and I think the first aspect is the content, the moral content of the message.
Or it could be a human translation as well.
Yes,
in a different language.
Yeah. And even a problem of, within the communication, the interpretation by the medium's brain of the message and so on. It could be any. I think the first aspect, the one that should come first in our list, to check the content, is the moral standard of the message. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. 256. As the spirits purify themselves and ascend within the hierarchy, the distinctive characteristics of the personality more or less disappear into the uniformity of perfection. But this does not mean that they do not retain their individuality. We will become more, how would I say, similar in terms of knowledge, in terms of behavior, although we will be us, we will have our identity. Each one of us, when we become pure spirits, we will have walked along a unique path. We will see the spirits who are very much like us, but they are not us. We have our own history, and they have theirs. But when we get to a point, we will think alike, we behave in the same way. We will have a heart, a loving heart that is very much the same. And in the end, when we get for the assistance of one of them, if we get the assistance from another one, it won't make any difference. It's like a highly specialized team of surgeons. One of them, perhaps, will be the most famous within the group. And maybe the clinic will receive his name. Dr. So-and-so clinic. But in the end, it doesn't matter who will operate us, because they are all of a very high standard. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So in the end, it doesn't matter if it was that doctor or the other doctor or another one within the group that operated me. I know the quality of the procedure, how serious they were, how careful they were. It's the same, Kardec's trying to show us that it's the same within pure spirits. They are pure spirits. They have their identity, yeah, but they are pure spirits. So if, Jesus helping me directly, or someone very close to him, it won't make any difference. That other spirit wouldn't say anything that Jesus wouldn't, So we see that it's not the identity, the name that will make the difference, but actually the real standards of that spirit. And if they are all very much the same in terms of, standard, we will get the same kind of advice, the same type of help. They will do things in a very similar way. I'm sorry, Cleo. I see your hand is raised.
I have a question, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I understood when you say that the name is not important, but the message. My question is, when we receive the message, sometimes they do not give any names. And on this occasion, should we ask for a name? Does the message always have to have a name?
Well, not necessarily. We'll see that. But sometimes they don't want to give names. They want to encourage us to accept the message, not because of the name behind the message, but because of the contents. Because if I say to you, oh, I'm Leon Denis, immediately you look at the message with different eyes. If I don't say anything, you will try to, by carefully analyzing the message, you will try to see who or identify who were the possible spirits giving communication. Then you said, oh, he's talking so much about Spiritism. He knows so much about Spiritism. I think he's one of the first, important people working within Spiritism. Oh, perhaps it's Leon Denis, or it may be Gabriel Delane. Oh, perhaps, he could be Camille from Marion, or even Allan Kardec. You see? If they want to give an importance to the message, but not to actually boost our pride or anything, they will give a name. If you want to ask, you may ask, but it's not sure that, they won't say. I saw in many occasions, people asking and the spirit saying, name is not important. saying that it's the content of the message. We are still too attached to the names. And names for us create an icon, a picture. And if I introduce myself, relating myself to that name, it gives you an idea who I am. Instead of me describing, oh, my life was like, oh, it was very similar to the life of so-and-so that I know. Yeah, we went through similar things. So you use, a personality that is ready-made to say to the group who, you are or who you identify with. But this is for good spirits. Others may hide their intentions, not good intentions, to convey something that is false, that is not true, that's not good, under a certain name. That's why the name is not important. In both cases, the name is not relevant. It may give us an idea, but what they're trying to say is forget names. Go to the content, analyze the content, see if it's good. Wonderful, use it. If it's not good, leave it aside, or even discard it completely. And if you're discarding something that is true, that is good, it will come back. Good spirits won't get offended by that. They actually want us to do that, to be very careful when accepting ideas. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem, clear. This applies both to high order spirits and pure spirits. At this level, the names they used while on earth during 1,000 ephemeral existences are something quite insignificant. Furthermore, we have noted that spirits mutually attract one another through their similar qualities, and they comprise sympathetic groups or families. On the other hand, if we were to consider the huge number of spirits who, since time began, must have finally reached the highest ranks, and if we were to compare the highly limited number of individuals who have left a great name on the earth, we would understand that among the high order spirits who can communicate with us, most are nameless. That's what I mentioned to you. There are so many spirits who are unknown to people here. Their names are not registered anywhere. So how important it is if that person says, oh, I'm so-and-so, I'm John. John what? John Smith. Oh, John Smith. Okay. How many John Smith we know? So how important the name becomes. So what they are saying is, the content is a better way to identify spirits. However, since we need names to fix our ideas, they may take on a name of a familiar personage whose nature most identifies with their own. I said to you, to a Catholic community in a country that is mainly Catholic, for instance, if that message is related to someone who is known to them, who means something to them, that will have more appeal to them than an unknown name or a name that is foreign to them. So it's, as I said to you, is what that name brings with it that will help people. For instance, if it's a Catholic community and they attribute that communication to a saint they like, is the patron of the small village or whatever, then that will boost their faith. That will mean something to them. It's not just the content, but the idea of that the message is there perhaps to rekindle their faith. So to have this meaning, they normally, good spirits, they, connected the message to that special saint or a person who has some meaning to them. And sometimes it's not the spirit who makes this connection. Those who witness that, apparitions, we know many apparitions are, oh no, it was the Virgin Mary. Perhaps it was a spirit, a young woman, and people saw Virgin Mary in her. But it wasn't her. But that had, was more appealing to them. They paid more attention to the content, to the message, than if it was just someone. And, depending on the community, if it's someone I know, they may even attribute that to the work of the devil, trying to, fool them. These kind of things. So we see that the identity of the spirit per se shouldn't mean much to us spiritists. It is thus that our guardian angels most of the time make themselves known by using the name of a saint whom we venerate. Hence, if a person's guardian angel uses the name Saint Peter, for example, there is actually no material proof that it is in fact the apostle. He could instead be an entirely unknown spirit belonging to the family of spirits to which Saint Peter himself belongs. The fact is that no matter by what name we evoke our guardian angel, it will answer our call because it is attracted by our thoughts. The name is irrelevant. Again, stressed over and over again how irrelevant names are, even in our prayers, Some people, sometimes they ask, I've seen that many times when people have the opportunity and say, oh, I pray to these and that spirits. But if they don't, listen to my prayer, or they can't come to my aid at that moment, we will be left without any assistance. And, the answer is no. Someone will come. No matter who that person is, someone will come, and we'll listen to your prayers. We'll do whatever is necessary. Some people even ask, oh, I normally pray to a saint. I'm Catholic, and if that saint is not, cannot come to assist me, who will come? Well, a spirit at his level. Spirits, the universe is populated by groups of spirits, and they group according to the similarity in their moral standards, their level. What difference will it make? As I said to you, what difference will it make if you go and you have an operation by this doctor, and when you go again there, it's a different doctor from the same team, with the same background, with the same experience, use the same technique, everything else? We will pay more or less attention to what he or she has to say because it's not the same one who performed the surgery. No, you put them at the same standard, and it doesn't matter their face or their name. What is important is, how good a surgeon they are. And because they belong to the same group. They wouldn't be part of the group if they were of a lower professional standard. It's the same with spirits, We may pray and say, oh, I sympathize, I like so much Saint Paul the Apostle. I always pray to him. But does he really hear my prayers? Well, he may hear your prayer, but not necessarily, he himself will come to help us. We have all the good spirits who are looking after us as well. So it's the thoughts that we emanate. It's not the name that the thought carries, an address. No, it's actually the standard of that thought. And will be perceived by a group of spirits who are at the same level. If it's good, it's a group of good spirits. If it's, not good, it's a group of not so good spirits. That's why they say, who we tune in and who we direct our thoughts to. When we think, we have negative thoughts towards someone, we are not just connecting with that person. We may not even connect with that person, but we certainly are connecting with spirits who think alike, whose thoughts are as negative as ours. And it's the same with prayer. And in the end, what counts is the level of the communication. And that's why Kardec is always emphasizing here. It's not the name that counts, be it a good spirit, a good message, or a deceiving message, a deceiving spirit. It doesn't matter. The name is not that relevant. Okay. Cleo, I see your hand is raised. Is that another question, or you forgot
Yes,
to?
please.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Sorry to
No,
go
it's a
on
pleasure.
again.
Actually, we are in a study group,
It's the way you explain is crystal clear.
Wonderful.
And was a subject that I had a few I wasn't sure before, but now I understand why sometimes we kind find it difficult to accept, is because usually when we write a letter, we always, or an email, we always put the name in the end. And if you are gonna give the message to someone, you say, here is, for example, a group, you say, here is the message, and and they're gonna ask, but who sent that message? But now you said that the important is the content and not the name.
Yeah.
But now I understand why we fight against this, because we usually expect a name at the end of the letter. But the way you explain is perfectly clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Yes, because in our way of communicating with people, in the physical dimension, we identify ourselves because it becomes something personal. But when you want to actually bring an idea, bring something, it's not the personal side of us that will count in that content. It's actually the content itself. So it doesn't matter. That's why sometimes you have brilliant quotations from anonymous people. Oh, wonderful. Oh, anonymous. So we sometimes feel even disappointed and said, oh, I wanted the name to know exactly, who said that. But it doesn't matter, who said that. The important thing is, what it means to you. And it's the same with other religions. Some people say, no, I can't read this book from Buddhism or from Islam or from why? Oh, because it belongs to another religion. It's not my religion or whatever. But the content may be wonderful, wonderful. You may extract, pearls from that text that, you identify with and say, yeah, wonderful. So it's not important the name and not important the religion behind that. What is important is the message, what the message says in your heart to you. I've seen so many beautiful messages. I had an auntie, she used to have these calendar from Seychelles. In the beginning, says Seychelles. Then I started to read. Every time I went to her house, I would, go and read the message and say, well, beautiful. And then another day, oh, this is also beautiful. So I got to appreciate that, not because it's Seychelles or these or that. It's actually what it means to me, Sometimes changing my mood that day, saying, oh, yes, yeah, patience. Yeah, we should all cultivate patience. It's so important. Hi, Pablo.
Hi, I was just thinking, because we came to understand that even people that can see spirits could be deceived, because the spirits, if they have that ability, they can change their appearance. So they could show themselves in a way that could lead you to think that they are someone that they are not.
Yeah.
So yeah, so once again, just to reinforce what you were saying, that message is
Yeah.
what it should be taken into account, not the name or the appearance.
Yeah. And you see, sometimes the problem is not the spirits itself, because good spirits will come. They may even use certain names to have a meaning for us. But the problem is us, because our pride sometimes makes us blind. And I tell you, there is this example. Someone told me this a long time ago. A small group in the interior of Brazil, they once, in the mediumship meeting about Jesus, you know that.
Yeah,
that Jesus was, giving communication in that spiritist center, would come to the mediumship meeting and give communication. Who are you? I'm Jesus. Oh, Jesus and Jesus and Jesus, until one day someone said, but Jesus Christ, no, Jesus something. Well, so you were, fooling us all this time. He said, no, I was not. You asked my name, I told you, Jesus. Didn't ask more than that. So saying that, they just, named Jesus meant everything they wanted it to mean, and full stop. And for a long time, they received Jesus in that, mediumship meeting without realizing he was, a nice guy from the countryside.
Yeah.
I said, Jesus, everyone welcomed me. Okay, right. Good. I'll come every week then. So, yeah.
And I was always very interested by what we call the apparitions of the Virgin Mary. And when you read about them, so you have that figure that wears a veil, and it's very beautiful, but once again, it doesn't matter if it was the Virgin Mary herself, but the content that specific spirit was trying to deliver. So
yeah, and not be embarrassed to ask questions, to doubt. Normal. Okay, well, I can see you. Are you Jesus Christ?
Yeah.
Had they asked this question, first day, things would have been different. But
if I'm not mistaken, the one that was in Fatima in Portugal, which is Our Lady of Fatima, and the children asked, "Who are you?" And she said, "I'm the Lady of the Rosary." She didn't say, "I'm the Virgin Mary." So yeah. So I'm always fascinated by these kind of things, because it is at the end of the day is the content.
Hi, Liz.
Hi there. On that subject of Jesus, it's quite funny, but we also have to bear in mind that people are actually called Jesus now. Many African families call their children Jesus, so they wouldn't be lying. Yeah. So you have to take that into consideration as well. I was wanting to speak about the context and quality of messages. And one way of actually noticing that messages are from, higher evolved spirits is that such spirits never waste any words in their message, because words is like energy. They don't waste the energy in how many words. They're not superfluous in what they say. They're very, very concise. There's no ambiguities at all. And there's a lot of clarity in their messages, as well as being very educative. And they're very, very hot on the signal to noise ratio. They are literally very conservative with their words. They do not waste even one word. We've noticed that a lot.
Yeah. Liz, we can take our example. When we are in control of a subject. We know it very well. We know how to answer certain questions. But when we know to a certain extent, but are not 100% confident, we try to explain in different ways. We say it, and then we say it again, and then we say it again, to see if we can convince other people and ourselves sometimes, because we are not sure that we understand it 100%. And we see that we repeat ourselves, many times. So it's the same with spirit. Sometimes they go straight to the point with few words. Silence is gold. Full stop. We get, the meaning just, from these few words.
Yeah.
Hi, Liz.
Hello. I just, couldn't agree more with Liz, and I think I could add to that obviously, if you are a higher and a more evolved spirit, you are not going to have the conflicts, the psychological conflicts that we have, the egocentric conflicts that we have. So the message obviously is going to be more concise. And not only that, because they are not going to waste words, but also because they don't have nothing to prove. And they are very much, they don't really take personally if we don't believe, if we don't want to follow, but also because they respect that people have their own level of involvement, and they may get themselves accept those or no, but they won't be trying to prove anything, trying to convince anyone. So I think that was the only thing I would add to that as well.
Very important aspect, Alice. Good spirits never go against our free will. So they'll never impose anything on us, and including concepts, ideas, messages. They come to offer to us. It's up to us to take them or not. And that's why they will never try to convince us. And some people say, why those good spirits don't come materialize themselves in front of us and do these and do that and prove these and prove that, so we would be convinced. No, they give us the necessary elements. It's up to us to accept that or not. So you mentioned something very important. There's never imposition. Whereas in cases of, spirits who are disguising themselves under certain names to propagate, wrong ideas, and even sometimes, encouraging us to do things that are not good, they try to convince us. They don't accept being questioned. They don't accept, that you doubt what they have to say. That's why good spirits will never get offended if you ask them questions, if we, show them that, they're not 100% sure. No problem. When you're right, you understand my message. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to offer you, if you wish, this message. Very good point. Thanks, Liz.
Yeah, when we ask a question to the spirits, they actually reply by giving us facts. So the onus is on us to do our own research prior to asking another question, once we've actually done our research and corroborate what they've told us. Because at that level, they would not lie. They would know the facts.
Yeah, indeed. And if we go to the spirits book, we'll see so many questions that, were asked to them. And sometimes they answer loud and clear. Sometimes they tell us, go and do your homework. We're not here to give you everything ready. You have to, walk, these bits with your, own legs. Okay. The situation is otherwise when a low order spirit assumes a respectable name in order to add believability to its words. This situation is so common that we can never be too careful regarding such substitutions, because it is thanks to borrowed names, especially with the aid of fascination, that certain theorizing spirits who are more proud than wise try to impose the most ridiculous idea. So, he brings here the adjectives we've used here. Spirits, who are trying to disguise their ridiculous ideas, their, wrong ideas, and they find, within themselves, they are more proud than wise, as it's been said here. Sometimes the spirits are not evil per se. They are, I would use the word ignorant, in the sense that they think they know more than they really do. And they are anxious to, share their ideas with us. But then, even in that case, of course, we have to be careful and understand who you're talking to, in the sense of the knowledge that spirit has. And the way, the content, the messages we've discussed here before, sometimes lengthy messages going over and over and over the same topic again and again. Of course, it's different from a subject that the spirits always bring in the message, like, pride and selfishness should be something that we should be fighting every day. That may be, behind good messages that we receive. But here, sometimes the spirit tries to convince us of something, repeating him or herself, using different words and again. So they are trying to impose something on us. And sometimes, it's not something that is true. It's their perception of things. But they think because it's their perception, it's something that other people should accept, should follow. Okay. I think we can stop here. I'll just read this here, but I'll leave the whole paragraph for us to study next week. So therefore, as a conclusion of what we have studied here, as we have said, the issue of identity is more or less indifferent when addressing general instructions. And it says here, since the most elevated spirits can substitute for one another without causing problems. So we know that, good spirits, they have a certain way of bringing the message to us. We can identify by the contents, their level. And of course, it doesn't matter if it comes from a group of evolved spirits, from spirit A or spirit B or spirit C. We are sure of the content of the message. I'll just write it down here for next week. So we start, it's going to be the 18th of May. Before. Okay. I'll stop sharing. Oh, here. Right. So, my dear people, thank you very much indeed. Before we go, let's just close our eyes. Join our thoughts, our hearts. And thank the benefactors for the lesson of today, for being able to join the group, to receive the studies, hoping that they will help us in this task, that we may make good use of the teachings that we receive for the benefit of a larger group, including ourselves. So be it.
Amen.
So thank you all very much indeed. See you all next week. Have a nice week.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.